Thank you. And then what we'd like to do before we get started, if you could just go around really quickly, just say your name and maybe the agency you work for, just so because we are recording it. And so people are going to be coming back and watching so they know who's talking and who the different resources in the room are. And then if at any point there are any tech issues, just toward well, actually, yeah, let us know, but you guys won't know. We'll know if there's tech issues, but otherwise, we'll let you know if anything on our side looks a little funky. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's all we've got. Will, why don't you start with introducing yourself and we'll go right around the room.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. A little echoey. Maybe move that a little bit closer.
Okay, how about now?
Better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, my name is Will Walker, social worker here at Central Iowa Shelter with the Rolling Hills Coalition. Next.
I'm Rachel Fine, and I work for Helping Hand in Communal. Stacy Beach, and I'm the coordinator of disability services for Davis County and South Central Behavioral Health Region, and the Housing First coordinator.
I'm Stephanie Cook. I'm the coordinator of disability services for Athens County in the South Central Behavioral Health Region.
Dina Swedson, I'm just a school counselor.
I'm with Children and Families of Iowa with the Parent Partner Program.
Misty McRoy, and I am also a CFI for the Parent Partner Program.
Deanna Tipton, I'm a parent partner.
Wonderful. Okay. So you guys know Sarah.
Person.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Oh, she's so sweet. Okay. Yes. Sorry, that was a little sidetrack. I love her. Yeah, I love her. Okay.
Sweet.
And Miss Janice. You guys work for Miss Janice.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Okay. All right. You guys are around good people. All right. Today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. This is really awesome because we all have went through this. Some fatigue, some professional fatigue as far as working with the populations that we work with. We've experienced in different. I've experienced in different parts of my life as far as professional life. So we're just going to touch base on, what are the different types of compassion fatigue versus stress and all that good stuff, and professional fatigue and all that things that come with that. We're going to talk about some techniques and some things that you guys can do, that you guys can work on to help yourself, help your clients, most importantly. So with that being said, has anyone ever heard of compassion fatigue or anything like that? We all have heard of that, okay. So let's start from the beginning as far as the difference. What is compassion fatigue? There's two elements. Compassion fatigue includes two elements: burnout and secondary traumatic. It's a burnout of secondary traumatic stress. It's a physical and mental exhaustion. Compassion fatigue includes two elements: burnout and secondary traumatic stress. Burnout is physical and mental exhaustion leading to reduced ability to cope with your environment. Compassion fatigue. Okay. So, for example, when we're working with clients, we're giving our everything. What's interesting, I wish the young lady was in here earlier, but you're Sue? Yes. And I when she was talking about the young lady that she was helping earlier in our earlier class, and how it's stressing her out, and she took it home and all that stuff, and she's worried about it. I was thinking of this part that we were going to be talking about. I wish she would be here because I worry because those things like that will lead to compassion fatigue. The more we worry about our patients and our clients, it takes a toll on us emotionally and physically. So with that being said, the burnout, it can be physical, it can be mental exhaustion, leading to reduced ability to cope with your environment. And our environment could be anything from our work environment to our home environment. It could be any type of environment. Good? Okay, perfect. Burnout involves fatigue, frustration, a sense of hopelessness and helplessness, reduced pleasure in work or other responsibilities. let's be honest, that we all had some kind of compassion fatigue in our career. Everything, yeah. Yeah. And have you guys felt all those symptoms as far as helplessness and hopelessness? Am I even really doing the right thing? Is this worth it? Am I making a difference?
I actually left a position. I worked at a school program where kids were basically court ordered. They didn't want them to be in the regular school system, so they put them in this, and we just, like, it was just throwing up barriers everywhere. We couldn't connect on the level that the kids wanted and needed. And so I spent 2 years there and just, I had to quit. I just physically couldn't do it.
Yeah, so you felt the
I
physical.
was sick, like, yeah. I'm like, man, I can't. Like, I could see them, and we kept trying and we just kept getting told, no, you can't do this, or no, you can't do this for them. Like, I don't know what else I can do. Like, I just don't feel like I can do anything.
And then with that experience, what's your name again?
Clint,
Clint. And so Clint, I'm sure you probably felt like you were walking out on the kids.
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt like you were giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All normal feelings and emotions that come with compassion fatigue, where I feel like I'm not making a difference, but do I walk out or do I stay? Is that going to make a difference? And, do you think you made the right choice by leaving?
yeah, I mean, just that place closed within 2 years after.
Oh.
It was, yeah, I don't think it wasn't conducive to that, and obviously it wasn't good for me. And it just wasn't the right place for those kids. I mean, they were so far behind everybody else that it was pathetic, really. So yeah, I think it worked out for me, and then coming to this position, I've rarely had a day where I didn't want to come to work or want to do the job. Like, I've not felt this good in a very long time. It took a long time to get there.
That's awesome. I had a position, I used to work, this is going to sound so bad. I used to work for an area education. And man, I used to kind of help determine what kids were going to receive special education services and things like that, and write IEPs and all that stuff. And man, that just tore me to pieces. Like, I had no love for it. I thought it made no sense. I thought the way they handle it, like, here's a prime example. I went to my supervisor and I said, I know what's going on with this kid. He needs therapy. The kid needs some kind of resources at home. She looked at me and she goes, well, we don't worry about what's going on. We only worry about what's happening in the building. Yeah, I said, well, how are we going to work? How are we going to help things? They're like, it's not our problem. We just worry about how this kid's doing in this building at the moment. And it just broke my heart. Then I saw this discrepancy also. Well, this was in Des Moines, where I saw this discrepancy where minorities were most of the kids getting put in special education that I'd have to do evaluations on, and I'm going, yeah, I'm like, let's go. This makes no sense. And so I was getting that frustration, that feeling where I didn't want to go to work every day. And I was like, I recommend never doing this. I almost got a divorce for this. So I would tell my wife every day, I would say, like, I wouldn't even ask for whatever money, they just gave it to me. And it was amazing. Like, you only work like, I think your contract was for 182 days, something like that. And they give you just astronomical amount of money. And I was like, nope, I need more. Okay. And I remember after the first couple months, I was like, you're training, you're learning how to write IEPs, you're learning how to do evaluations, you're working, using data and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I go into the schools, and now I'm sitting with principals and teachers and doing parents, and I hate it. I hate it. And I'm like, so I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I don't like this. She's like, well, it's good money. Might as well just stay with it. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, but I don't like it. I was like, it's just something about it. I don't like it. And just not built for me. I'm not ready for this. And she's like, well, just do it. So school year starts in August. This was before COVID. So about 2 years ago, or about 5 years ago. And I made it through Christmas, and I would always throw these little jabs at my wife, and I'd say, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't like writing these reports. I mean, these reports are like brutal. I mean, just you evaluate a kid for 60 days and it's just brutal. I hate it. And this whole time, my wife's not listening to me. I'm telling her I don't like it. Physically, I'm feeling sick. I don't want to go. I just don't like it. And finally, I said, I got up one morning. I laid in bed that day, and I got up, put a suit on, and I walked over to not walked over. I drove to our AA over in Johnston, and I said, walked into HR, and ladies at the front were like, "Hey, Will, what's new? How you doing?" I was like, "Hey, is the head HR lady here today?" And they're like, "Oh, she won't be until like 9." I was like, "Oh, they're like, we can help you." I was like, "No, I'll just sit here and wait." And they're like, "You sure?" And I was like, "I'm in no rush, just waiting here." And, and then so finally the lady, HR head lady comes by and she's like, "Will, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "You got a second?" She goes, "Is this good news or bad news?" I was like, "It's both."
Yeah.
It's both. And she's like, "Okay, come to the back." And she's like, "So what's up?" And I said, I had my backpack because they gave us backpack with laptop, computers, phones, all this stuff in it, iPads. And I said, I quit. And she looks at me, she goes, "You're in a contract." And I said, "Yeah, I don't care." And she's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "It's half the year." It was like right before Christmas break. And I was like, "This just isn't for me no more." I was like, I don't smile anymore. It's just isn't fun for me. I said, "I feel sick. I just don't like it." And she goes, "Well, have you told your supervisor?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I figured you could." And she's like, "I don't know if we could do this right now." And I'm like, "Well, you kind of have no choice. I mean, I'm not going back to work today." I was like, "I'm giving you everything I own and this is yours." And she came back and she's like, "Okay, but I don't know what's going to happen with your contract. You may not be able to ever work for AEA because you broke the Department of Education." I was like, "I'm okay with that." I was like, "I'm okay, don't worry." And she's like, "You really don't want to do this?" I was like, "No." I was like, she's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I was like, "I don't know, just not this." I was like, "I don't know, I'll figure it out." So I'm sitting there for like an hour and I'm going through the process of changing everything out. And she's like, "You're really serious about this?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm done. Like, you guys can." She goes, "Well, didn't you have some evaluations coming up?" And I was like, "Yeah, just not." I said, "I'm enjoying my Christmas." I was like, because if I would have kept this job, I would have the worst Christmas break because I'd be writing evaluations and I'd be stressed about them. And no, she's like, "Okay, all right, well, here, we'll pay you out this amount of money and here you go, blah, blah, blah." I walked out and she looked at me again. She goes, "So what are you going to do the rest of the day?" I said, "I'm going to go to the Star Bar and have steak and a beer for lunch." And down on Ingersoll in Des Moines. And she's like, "Okay." Sat there with my buddy and had a steak and had beer and went home that night. And about 4 o'clock, my wife's like, "Hey, how was work?" I was like, I said, "Today was a great day." And she's like, "Okay, well, what made it great?" I was like, "I quit today." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm going to bet on myself." I was like, I'm tired of working for people and I'm just going to bet on myself." I was like, "They gave me quite a bit, so we'll be okay." And I think I'll be okay. She just broke down in tears and, "Do we need to take Christmas gifts back?" And I'm like, "No, we don't need to take it." I was like, "We're good." She's like, you didn't talk to me about this." I'm like, "I tried for months. You just didn't listen to me. You didn't." I was telling you, I don't want to. I mean, it got so bad. I used to cover Carroll, Iowa too. I would go to Carroll and those little towns up there and write IEPs. I go to West Des Moines and write IEPs. And there was times it got so bad where I would say, "I hate this job so much. Sometimes like I wish like the car would just like go off the road and I can get like a disability." Like I hate it that much. Like I would rather be hurt than do this every day. And she'd just be like, "It's okay, you'll make it to the end of the year." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm done." I said, "I'm not asking you anymore. If I'm just gonna quit." And then and after about a week, she got over it and everything was good. And so that was that professional fatigue that I was probably doing more hurt to the agency and to kids because I wasn't writing IEPs and it just wasn't conducive to what I wanted to do in life as far as I'm a therapist and it just wasn't good. That was my story.
Can I ask where your therapist was at?
Yes. So then it was night and day. The money. It was the money. And you can only work 182 days out of a year?
I said, how much money are we talking
A
about?
lot of money. A lot.
I love my job. So.
Yeah, a lot. And so that's what made it. If I had never probably been a therapist before that, I may have been okay with it. But I saw like, yeah, it wasn't good. IEPs were just very, very interesting things. Their contracts, you can get sued, you can go end up in court with them, and you know, parents didn't like them. I was just like, if the school didn't like it, it was an issue, and so no.
We had to sit in the
My daughter
IEP
has
decision when they would bring everybody back together and they would have the teacher and
Principal,
sometimes a lawyer.
Yep.
They were just terrible, and they never seemed like they addressed anything for
issue.
the kid.
nope. Mm-mm.
Like it was just
It
was their plan.
Yep.
And this is what we're gonna do, and it was
Yep.
just
That's what it was. I
Yeah.
would make the plan. I
Yeah.
would say, you're gonna spend 15 minutes in specials for reading, or you're gonna spend 15 minutes in this other room for behaviors. And then we're gonna do this, this, and this, and you're gonna have this special teacher that's gonna follow you around. And
None of that matters if something bad's going on at home.
thank you. And I
Well,
tried to explain that to them. I tried to say, this kid needs like some resources outside of here. It's not a responsibility.
well for me. Like we would as the workers, sit there on a like almost like a soul level with the kid. Like we get along.
Yeah.
The kid would be happy. Doing his schoolwork.
Mhm.
And then as soon as we get into a meeting like that, it's just like a whole different person.
Yep.
Because they're just not, like, I don't know, there was just nothing there for them.
Exactly.
But then we were told like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
it-
was like, I was wanting to help them, like, because I grew up in situations that I'm like, I know
What they need.
on a level, like, of what this kid's going through. And it just, I was so frustrated to not be able to do any of it.
So imagine me having to write the plans, and I
then,
know
yeah.
it's full of shit. I know it's not what the kid needs, and
I
I
can
know.
hear that conversation with your wife, because for a month before I just quit, I'm like, I would tell her, I'm just a shell.
Yep.
Like I just,
Mhm.
and it was the same thing. I'm like, well, you can do it.
Toughen it out.
Because it was a decent job, one of my first actual professional kind of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called her one day. I was out in my car halfway through the school day. And I'm like, just talking through. And she's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, you'll be okay. Just sit out there for a little bit. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm done.
Yep.
I quit. I'm officially done.
Mhm.
Like, it's over.
Mhm.
And then we had the same conversation. Like, you what?
Yeah, you feel
Like, well, you need to
horrible.
go back in.
No,
I'm like, no, you don't understand.
yeah, no.
I'm done.
I did the same thing, and I don't realize until years how very lucky I was that my husband was the complete opposite and was very supportive because I needed to hear, just quit.
Yeah.
It's a
I was
job.
waiting to hear that too.
Just don't, you're literally damaging our family because of what you're
Yes.
bringing home. Why, it's a job. And it took so long to get over the guilt of walking away from a good paying job with nothing. Yeah, and it was the best feeling in the entire world to just, "That's it. I'm done with this. I'm done with you."
Well, mine was affecting my kids. Like, I take some of that stuff home and
Yeah,
take it out on my kids. Like, my frustrations, I get mad at them, yell at them, stuff that I never would have, like,
but now.
I
gotten.
think
No.
we need to be more aware of the fact that sometimes it's okay to quit.
Yeah.
Sometimes quitting is exactly what somebody needs to. I think we have a culture of don't quit, can't be a quitter, can't be.
Walking out.
People should know when enough is enough, and hopefully,
Generations
Yeah.
above us though.
true,
Like, I think my grandparents would have did jobs they paid,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, just because that was what you did. And, so I think that comes from people that come for us a little bit too, but.
And I've used that with my kids. Like, they've started like band or basketball teams. And if they, come to a point where they're like, because me when I was a kid, I was a lot like, you don't quit like,
Right.
you're on a basketball team, you're not quitting, you're finishing, like, you're finishing it, you're doing it. I don't care how much you hate it, like, if they say, like, if they can tell me why they don't like it, if you don't like it, don't do it.
I think
Like,
there's a,
it's not worth, yeah,
there's a far different thing from quitting because you don't want to do the work because something's too hard
Right.
to quitting because your mental health. can't
Right.
handle it. There's a completely two different side of the coin.
That's where I was at, and thank God my husband could see that, and yes, it was just, why are you doing this?
Yeah, that's way different from somebody who just doesn't want to, I want to get up, go to work.
And how empowered do you feel that your husband is supporting that kind of thing? So good, he was like, just want to make this good.
Eventually it did, like at first it just added to the feelings of confusion, because you don't just walk away from a job without another job lined up when you have family to support and a
Yeah, that's the way
mortgage.
I was raised too.
Yeah.
That's something
For
I
society.
had responsibilities, and so,
Yeah.
absolutely.
and it is betting on yourself, like, I didn't have anything lined up, but I'm like, you know what? I'm smart, I have some schooling,
Yeah, you figure
done
it out.
many things, like, I can go work at, and even, I could go get a job, tomorrow.
And I should have known it was okay to quit. I remember right out of high school going to Iowa State, and a big university setting was horrible, a horrible fit for me, and a horrible setting for my mental health. And I called my mom, just fall, and like, go, there are a million other colleges, go somewhere else. It took all year long, and finally one conversation, I was like, I can just quit. I don't have to come back here next year. And it's like, I made up my mind in that split second, and everything is fine. So why didn't that transfer 20 years later to your job? I don't know, because I still have the mentality of, don't quit, it's a failure. You don't.
Yep, my dad always instilled, you don't quit a job. Like that stigma, like if you quit a job, you don't like to work and stuff like that. You need another job, and it has to be a better job than the one you've got now, kind of thing. So yeah, I get the same way when I,
I hope for the rest of my life I remember that. Because it's not.
For me, that was a pivotal point, I think, in my professional career. Sometimes I'll look at my wife. Yes, because it's better, we're better financially, we're better, I'm better, a better dad, a better husband, happy.
But sometimes we learn just as much from bad decisions as we do good. So hopefully she learns.
And you know what it came down to when I talked to her? She was brave. It's fear.
It's fear.
It was fear. I mean, look at her, what her first date was. Let me take Christmas gifts. I was like, no, why would you have to do that? That was that fear of what's going to happen to us. It's that.
Struggle.
Yes.
I will say I quit like 2 days after Christmas.
So you just waited that.
I didn't want to take the presents back.
Well, and it makes you wonder a little bit if the traditional gender roles play a part too. Like, is it easier for a husband to say, just quit, versus a wife to say that?
That's
Because-
a good
great
observation.
Yeah, when we were going through, so I went to retail from there as a manager and made really good money. Tons of hours, working
Tons of
nights,
hours, yeah.
never home kind of thing. Did that for 7 years, and then like I learned from that first experience though, like I started talking to my wife. Like, look, I'm not like I can make the money, I can do this in my sleep. Like I can continue to just be a shell and just go through it, clock in, clock out. That's not what I want. And this position came open, and so we talked about it. It was going to be a $20,000 gap. Like I was going to take a pay bomb, just all kinds of stuff. And but that's the benefits of it outweigh that. And since then, like it's the best decision. Me and her would both say it's the best decision I could have ever made. Because I'm home, I cook dinner most nights. Like I take the kids to school and back. Like I have so many things that I never could do for, first 10 years of my kids' lives that I just have nothing holding me back now from being the dad that I need to be, being the husband. Like, there's just so many things I could do that I've never done if I had stayed at any of those other places.
What about, you guys ever experienced? Just not being able to take care of ourselves. That's ever hit that a time where you know, I used to always, my first graduate from graduate school, I thought I could see the world. Feel that ability. Yeah, I used to change the world. You don't change it. They were looking at me like this. And I'm like, no, but if we do this versus this and we cut this out, and you're like, check the box. But then, you know, what I found myself doing is part of my pockets. Part of my purchase. And I was doing that. I was working later, early driving, stuff. I was just getting burned out. Then it becomes resentment. Then I'm like, you guys ever get those feelings where you work with your clients now or in the past?
Oh, I think it's a housing rule when it's just, it's huge. Because it's just, it seems like it would be common sense that you house someone homeless. Oh, I fixed everything for you. Everything's gonna be better now. And it's, housing doesn't erase trauma. Housing doesn't erase addiction. It doesn't, it's bullshit. That housing first model is like, and
You can't really say that.
I know.
Some people are like,
Eat you alive.
yeah, some people.
Don't be
I know.
supposed to
I-
be recording.
Stop.
All of a sudden drones
But
coming.
I think, I have just transferred that to making sure that I don't take a punt. I'm not gonna look ugly in my eyes. I'm not going to expect success. It is their choice, and what they do with it is just theirs. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing I have, because when I came out of college, I was like, yeah, I was going to save the world. That's going to make it better. And everybody in our region calls me the tree hugger to this day. I'm not really, but I'm just nicer than they are. But I have to sometimes step back and say, who's working harder here? Because then I'll go home and I'll just be physically exhausted, a headache. I just want to take a nap. I'm just done.
But she thinks I'm a heartless bitch because I don't take it.
But,
You understand boundaries.
and I get boundaries and I get that, but I have to like self-talk to myself. Who's working harder here? Because if I don't, I'm like, oh my gosh, and this is terrible, but in my county, it tends to be Friday at noon, everybody realizes that their housing is locked. Even if they've known for 30 days. Friday at noon, they decided it's an emergency. And I have to say, you know, I can't fix that for you in 4 hours. If you'd have come to me 29 days ago, I might have had that fixed for you. But unfortunately, I can only do what I can do today. And hopefully we can figure out a solution that keep you safe tomorrow. And that's a hard thing for me to say. It's a very hard thing for me to say to people, because I want to help somebody, because I feel like I've been fortunate. You know, people have helped me. I've had good things happen to me. I want to be that person for somebody else, and so it doesn't.
My first year in the VA, like 27, 28, 40 counties.
That's ridiculous.
And
Sorry.
I'll never forget, I had a homeless gentleman. It was a hot July day. VA hurricane was in Georgia. And I'm driving around in this government car, I was with him all day. I was searching, trying to figure out where to put them. They were here. 30 people out, I remember, downtown. He finally looked at me, 'cause I'm like, well, And we tried to watch, okay, we tried general system, okay, wait, what if we do the shelter, or we kicked out of there? Okay, what if we try to vet the mission, now we kicked out of there, because you won't go to church, okay, and finally, this is a guy who's been homeless for years, driving downtown Des Moines at 4:30. So what, you gotta need this. Study, you've done everything you can do. I was like, no, it's like 2 degrees, like, he's like, I'll figure it out. Figure it out. And I was like, it took him to actually say that to me. I was like, yeah, I was going 100 miles an hour. Like, no, we gotta do this. We gotta figure out something because he's got his bags. And he said, oh, he's like, I'll figure it out. He's like, I always do. I remember driving away with the river, and you were like, I remember it to this day. I was just like, no place to go. I was wondering,
So you probably figured it out. That's what that's.
Well, and I've learned sometimes homelessness
It is,
Yes.
absolutely.
and maybe we don't understand it, but
Well, I was working with a vet, which I very rarely work with a vet because that's just not part of our job. Yeah, they have a different agency that helps them, but he kind of needed to go from this count. And he met me and he liked me. And he would come in with, I don't know, I'm just lovable. Don't laugh.
Some people stack chairs.
I know.
I will try
The
anything.
second was
And then
just,
driving
I'm
the tree.
gonna try that on somebody's stuff.
I'll try anything. And he was living in his van slash storage shed. And he had VA benefits. He had a good income. He had a good income. And everybody in town, the sheriff, people off the street, church people, were all coming to me. But you gotta fix this, you gotta fix this, you gotta fix it. And he can't, you have to help him, you have to help him, you have to help him. So I snookered him in with a good meal, is why they liked me, right? Food, I mean, come on, food, it works well with everybody, right? And he finally looks at me and goes, what are we doing here? And I said, whatever you want to do. He said, well, I'm happy where I'm at. And I'm safe where I'm at. And I said, okay, so here's the deal. Here's my card. If you ever become not happy or not safe, come back and see me. And I haven't seen him since, but I still see him parked out by the storage shed. But, and I'm telling you, this was January. This is when it was so cold in January, when it was like negative whatever all day long and all night long. And he stayed in that van and he was perfectly content. That was hard.
I have a lot of students who come to school, a lot of students who always go to school, I'm trying to tell the world, it's okay to not, sometimes people gotta do their own thing, sometimes we can't fix everything. We do this profession because the two things, we wanna fix people, we have our own issues. That's why we're in this profession. Let's be honest. Yeah.
I resemble that remark.
That's why we get into
I
this.
feel like this is an intervention.
So.
Ryan, I wonder what the
Ryan,
camera's going.
you're close to the door. Get out.
I should do the restaurant, but
Yeah. So
we gotta allow ourselves permission to kind of not take on everything. Stop. It's okay. I'm a prime example. Like I said, I won't say the word like how I wanted to now. So people like, yeah, I'm good to do it. So what are some of the things you guys have done as far as opening your team? I know I like to talk to my wife about it. Say, oh my God. I should do this, I should bring me that down. But Grace, it's fine. Everything, shelter like a block away.
Most of the companies that I've worked with, they want housing because they all have kids. It's kind of the whole what I do, deal with children. And it does get very emotional, get very frustrated. There's a lot of cogs in the wheel kind of things going on. And for me personally, I go to a lot of meetings, there are a lot of AA meetings. I have a huge recovery family. I spend a lot of time with my coworkers, and we go to lunch all the time. Our families intertwine, our kids play together. We just have this big family, and I meet these people. We all get stressed out over some stuff, and we all are very. We used to work good because I don't know what I want. Well, we're very good at supporting each other, find resources, find clients. But I also, aside from my clients and my work life, I also have a lot of people I work with in the company. I sponsor people, help people work through that. So that adds other stress to my life. But my meetings is where I let stuff go. It's where I can kind of diffuse, and obviously I can't talk about my clients, but I can let my frustration about how I'm feeling, what's going on with me. And I'm really grateful that I have such a large group of people that surround me that I can really not talk to if I need to. Because when I go home at the end of the night, my kids really don't care what the hell I'm talking about or what's going on with me. My cats might rub against my leg. That's about the best I'm getting on that view, right? So it's just me. And it's just like, like if I have to put the kids to bed, I turn my love on the clock and sit there. I read my late like this, I read my yoga. And I just kind of just take some time just to be quiet. Not have to hear everybody talking. And this one's one of this, it's really bad. So it's, I think I probably know something.
Those are good tools that you use to sports. What we're doing is sports. We have the same place in that.
Some days I'm not so sure.
Anyone else? What do you guys do for self-care?
Play a lot of video games. Yeah, I'm a huge gamer, and when I can get on Call of Duty or whatever.
I am too, though.
Oh, and I'll search
I think
for,
we do work together.
like, I look for, like action figures, signatures, so I'll search internet for like weird, cool things. Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of your debrief. That's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of your-
Well, it's almost like the game to me is just where like I have no, it's just mindless. Don't have to think.
No
Like it's,
responsibility.
yeah, nothing.
But that's good. It helps you take care of yourself. Because I think in this profession, that's what we struggle. We want to help everyone else, just forget about ourselves. And that's what leads us to doing things that we shouldn't be doing anyway. Just forget about it. We're telling our clients, do all these good things, go get a house, and go do this, and go get this. And then we go and do those things for ourselves.
Have you ever asked that question, you just had somebody like really was just like cocaine or covers? Well, my,
Oh, she just.
You never do.
Not probably.
how do you self-care? Cocaine or covers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Clients,
So
yes.
if nobody could tell, this is part of my self-care.
Okay.
Just like I'll call and say, oh my gosh, you cannot believe what has happened. Because she lives in Athens County, but she works in Davis. So we know a lot of the same people. And she'll say something like that. I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm not so stressed out about this anymore now.
I thought there wasn't no cocaine in Davis County.
I'm not saying there's not, but she knows what I'm talking about. I actually, when you compare our two offices, my office is like free flow, people in all the time. And she's like,
I could
not.
die, you know.
She could die, nobody.
And that's absolutely crazy because Appanus County has way more need than Davis County when it comes to housing. don't
I
they?
know.
Oh, you're, okay, okay.
I'm Athens. So,
Okay.
I'm just like a revolving door all day long, somebody wants something. And she's like, I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, yeah, I got everything done. And I'm like, shut up.
Okay,
you know? Yeah, she says stuff like that to me and I'll be like, oh, it's like a shock effect in my mind, you know? And we have a gal that works with us in our tunnel office that she's awesome to help. But as far as any other self-care stuff, I'm not really good at it. I'm not really good at it. I'm better. I'm old now, so I'm better. Slowly. Baby steps, you're exactly right. I'm old enough now that I kind of when you're ready to try it, Miley, come back and see me. Because that's taken me years to get to that phrase. I just didn't come to that in like, woohoo, an epiphany.
Sure, was it tattooed on your arm when you were born?
No, because my mom would beat me to this day at my age. I had a tattoo. When she dies, I'm getting one, but not till.
Not still.
But yeah, I mean, I've had to say, are you getting what you want? Is this bringing you where you want to be? Where do you want to be? But then I also find out that people we work with don't often have that like long-term goal of anything more than where am I sleeping tonight? And so then you have to have that, you have to understand how do you balance your, this is how I see my life going, and not push that onto somebody else.
I think for parent partners, and mind you, we start training to be a parent partner, and it takes between 4 or 5 months to 7 months to actually start getting clients. We have to get to the client, but training with the other parent partners. And one of the things that we get right out the gate is do not work hard on the client, set your boundaries. Because they say it's easier to take your boundary back a little bit than to try to push it forward. So but we learn that right out the gate. Don't work hard at it.
Well, I tell you, they never taught me that.
Yeah, no, they don't-
I had to learn that on my own.
Well, not only that, if you're working harder than your client's working, what are you really teaching them? They're not gonna be able to do anything on their own if we're doing
Once we
everything for
leave,
them.
they need to be able to.
And I guess it's like raising children.
And they can't do.
I mean, at the end of, and I hate to make it sound like that simple, but it's like raising children. If you don't raise them to be independent adults, they're not gonna be. So you have to think of it the same way. But it took me a long time. I mean, let's just say, I'm old.
Well, here's my plug before we get out here. I want you guys to some resources I think would be very helpful for professional stress, trying to take on too much. Doesn't matter if you read, if you don't. I think everybody. This profession that we're in, everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking about your cat, your dog, it just doesn't matter to have somebody to unroll who's not your husband, who's not your wife, just something different, just someone who's gonna, not judge you, not try to fix you, just having that outlet. We hear some people in the darkest moments, worst times of their life. We internalize all that stuff. And what are we supposed to be like? I think I'm gonna drink it tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that. Eventually it's gonna hit you, it's gonna keep building up, piling up. You're gonna lose something, you're gonna lose, explode, you're gonna say something you shouldn't say.
You're gonna walk out.
Yeah, it's just something's gonna happen. So what I like to do is stay ahead of it. I always tell my little kiddos, I tell them what therapy is. And I go to a therapist. You're like, well, I'm like, it's not a bad thing. I said, I'm not going there. I get it like saying anything I want to say, and someone's not gonna like make fun of me or judge me or critique me or about anything. So that's one part of what I would say. In this profession, you definitely step out. Also, talk to your supervisor. Doing that, doing that burn is leaving. Like, yeah, I probably should look at my boss, but I didn't want to. I just wasn't a comfortable fit for her. She just wasn't approachable or anything like that. But yeah, it's the thing. You know anything about the ADA, it's just different. But talk to your supervisors, talk to people around you, let them know how you feel. Let them know that they might see some things in you too. They might say. So it's good just to get it out. What happens also when we have that compassion? We start losing our clients that are like our friends, like our therapists, or like our counselor. Some people do, especially in small towns. Think about it. I mean, you just you're like, oh man, did you know this stuff downtown? You start crossing boundaries, and then it gets into those ethical issues, and it's hard to pull those things back. Once you break that, or more going back to coffee, it's hard. Now you already get shut. So nip those things in the bud so we're not using our clients, especially commissions to clients. Just take it serious. Talk.
It's funny, we have a group therapy session once a month. So you all get together and Just coming in, just
Just let me.
so that stuff out. It's, yeah, it's amazing.
This, yeah, feels so good. Genius.
Like this, to know that people have different aspects of it.
Great point. Especially with our professional. Yeah, I always think about police officers, firefighters.
In my 14 years of being school counselor, I had students, and one of them was pretty horrific parts in the first one I started my career. And I don't know, I opened up the school at 6 a.m., just people come and people that were like, wow, including all the EMTs and all the other folks and all the fire people, because they were pretty. And I found myself, the AEA's counseling group showed up to help me. And they were, in some respects. But if you just go over, I didn't know who that person was that was floating around and feeling with all that. And then I got home that night and just. Not only do I lost students that I was close with and they were therapeutic with me, but now the dad told me this and the current people told me what they found and it was great because they needed to get out their tests. So. Exactly.
I think that would be important.
So I learned that when I finished my master's at Drake, they said step number one, and I was in the school counseling track, but I shared with a lot of but they said step number one, get your job. Step number two, be a therapist.
So you call that vicarious trauma. Everything you guys are doing, especially with the chest. In the GAL, who you guys are. That's a lot of stuff. That person looking at you as everything. Therapist, friend, mom, or sister, brother.
I think it's important, like you brought up, that it should be mandatory for those type of, like for parent partners, it's a required, you have to go to this every month. This clinicals where like fire, police, like I was in the military and it's the same way, like you should, I know you don't want to force people to do things, but it should be mandatory that you at least sit in front of somebody and have the option to talk to them. Whether you talk,
That's a
you can't make somebody talk, but you should be at least sat down somewhere with somebody to have that option. It doesn't happen because I didn't talk to anybody until I was dealing with some other personal stuff, and then all of that came up. So
Just we even realize that I was standing up less people, like they were religious people, so they asked me. Would you preside over the service? Yeah, so here I am, new in town, 1,500 people in school meetings, and my casket in front of me. I had to like take it to my name. To this day, I still have feeling that it was, it was someone else that had to save me. This is what you didn't want to do the service. I find myself being almost cold-hearted when stuff happens because.
Let it go, it's gonna go.
And they say it at school, it's like, this is a sad thing. For your kids. They're like, "We do that, and then I go home."
So take care of yourself. Guys.
Oh,
Take care of yourself, take care of each other. You can't save the world, you can't fix everything. This is a small piece. We have our clients, that's most of the work.
We do have parent
Walk alone, not in front of them, not behind them, just. All right, you gotta get out of here, okay?
That would be there's another coordinator that does Knoxville. Her name's Beth.
is it?
What are you teaching now?
still is.
Might work again today, but.
Is it?
Well, budget hours, yes.
If I get up, I just stay here with you, all
I
right?
think I'm gonna team up with
Southern.
Ebert and do.
Southern, yeah.
What was it?
Most of our